Alright, so we're continuing the video of the scariest palefaces we met, and this at the time I guess I wasn't he seemed kind of cool. And he liked us.
It was very cool. He did like us, which was very fortunate.
Yeah. We met the man known as what was his? I know he had a different. What was his name?
I don't know what his real name was. He went by Tom. I was working part-time at Gershbeck Supermarket. I used to do my writing at the McDonald's across the side street next to Martin's Air Force Base. And it's like an Air National Guard, a small plane base in Middle River, Maryland. And I wrote an article that was a response to a reader wrote in about a Chateau Hertzites article where a Marine, a combat veteran from the Middle East, was pistol whipped in his car behind a bar in Fells Point, Maryland. And I was not very sympathetic because I have avoided that fate. I'm not a war hero, okay? Never carried a gun. Well, illegal carried a shotgun one time, and that was so stressful I never did it again. Okay.
Oh, you didn't serve. Thank you for your service.
But this guy emails me, and he says, "Yeah, I can't stay in Jarheads. I'm an Army guy. You want to get together sometime?" I could tell this was like a guy I had to talk to. Okay, so I met him at a bar. We immediately knew who each other was. He's a muscular, red-headed, blue-eyed, Irish Bostonian demon. Okay, he's like in that. It's like 5'10", 180, that kind of guy, and he's a gun guy. You know, he boxed when he was a kid. And, he was a rough kid. He had 2 different tours in 2 different sections of the Army. Then he worked as a military contractor. And people say, well, how can you trust what somebody tells you? Well, it's how they learn to trust me. And, you know, I know sometimes some people are going to, like, take a story that their friend told them that they did, that they believed, and they might ascribe it to themselves. That'll happen with some people. You know, people that like to tell stories, okay? But not that often. I mean, with the military guys, they want to get hammered drunk with you and find out if they can trust you because they don't trust the psychoanalyst people. And for some reason, I guess because they knew I was interested in, you know, maybe some of the stuff that they had done, they trusted me. I just had a lot of experience interviewing violent survivors, you know, criminals, witnesses, targets, victims, good guys, bad guys, and neutral guys. I just had a lot of experience, so I think me being relaxed with them made them feel like they could have a drink with me, and I'm a nice drunk, so people can threaten me and have fun with me and make fun of me, and I'm okay. So that gives them you know, they can call me a pussy civilian, and, you know, I don't mind. Okay, so I've gotten together and drank with Tom 9 times. That's between the first time I met him was the first time I did a Myth 20 interview. Okay. It was like in the same week. That was like 2017?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And every time I came east, I knew I was going to have to get together with him, and I would get together with him like once a month. Now, the creepy thing is he called me up every Tuesday, where I was in different places in the country. One Tuesday a month, he would ask me to suggest a violent course of action he should take in going back to work. Okay, so this guy's job was to get me on audio suggesting, you know, how a violent act should be committed. And I would just say, well, now, Tom, you know, you've had it rough enough. You know, you've been to war, you've done time. You don't need any more trouble. I just want you to stay safe and stay out of trouble. So this went on for years. Now, the last time I was supposed to get together with him was September of 2020. August. Oh, it was all, I believe it was August of 2020. I was with my friend here, and Tom traveled on a motorcycle. I had gotten together with him with my girlfriend, and they actually had a ball together. He tried to horrify her, and she just laughed. He drove a motorcycle, a crotch rocket style motorcycle, and he packed 2 pistols, okay, in a fanny pack and in a chest pack, 2 different pistols. And there was just this demonic quality about him, and there would be a certain point when he would get so dark, and his eyes, his blue eyes, would actually turn like onyx colors, and he'd look at you. So the first time I got together with him, we had like a 7-hour drunk at the Raven Inn, and Nancy, not Nancy this is not the Nancy I was talking about that made the mojitos for him. This is a very nice barmaid at the Raven named Nancy. She's now the only person in the main bar room. Tom and I are sitting in the dining room, but I've got advantage on the tap and her. Well, 2 oppressed individuals came in and they circled the bar. These were too young to buy, okay? And this was Sunday night, and it was getting dark out, and it's across the street from where I coached, a very desolate area at night. Guys were always trying to mug me in this area. So I decided to get up and go in there and order beers that were not needed to interrupt what was going on, because one guy's trying to distract her while in the front, while 2 other ones are behind her. So I go in there, and there's also a 4th hood rat on the front door. And I stand right next to this kid. I interrupt him. And I said, Nancy, my friend and I would like another beer. I just wanted to show this kid what was in the other room, okay? And Tom packed a big knife, and he got beat up and stomped unconscious by 5 Mexicans outside of Tom's bar. This is why I called him Tom, okay? Because he got stomped by these 5 Mexicans outside of Tom's bar, and he popped 2 lung sacs. He got 2 chest stabs on 2 of these Mexicans. The rest of them stomped him unconscious. This old black guy tried to help him up, pulling him up out of the gutter, and Tom cuts him across the shin. Oh, okay? Geez. And wasn't even nice to the guy that tried to help him. Okay, that's how hardcore Tom is. And he still had his knife in his hand. He wasn't technically out of the fight, even though he did lose consciousness. He felt a little bitch-like about that, okay? So, but he put 2 of these suckers in the veterinary clinic, okay, over this. So he's getting up. He's starting to draw his knife from about 21 feet away.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And Nancy looks at him, I'm looking at him, and the kid is behind me looking over my shoulder, and he mumbles like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
they are these guys just do like a 4-man bashing at
out.
Okay, so they knew, no explanation necessary. No. He looked at those eyes that should have been blue, and he saw the next world right there. Yeah. And I said, Nancy said, "These are on me," and I said, "Thank you, Nancy." She said, "Thank you for the help with the customers that I was going to have to card, and thank you for your help with your friend, because I really don't want to be here 4 hours overtime explaining this shit to the cops." Right. Because Nancy's been around. She knew something really horrible was about to go down. So Tom's funnest story was about shooting a guy in Africa who he knew by name, and he shot him in the head, and he prided himself on a hip draw with a 45. And he shoots this guy in the head, and he drops him, and he told you this story too. Once he got really drunk, and then the guy pops back up and starts to run. So his partner cuts him down with the AK, and this was like their buddy.
I don't recall anything. I don't think I ever met this guy. I don't know any story about anything.
Okay, so the last phone call I get from Tom, it's the Tuesday, 7 days before the elections in November 2020. And there's something ominous in his tone of voice, like he was about ready to go back to work. And he told me he was about ready to go back to work. And he was apologetic. He had to ask me this question one last time. He apologetically asked this question. I answered it very briefly and laughingly. He's like, oh, yeah, Tom, you know, I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. And he said, well, sir, it has been an honor and a pleasure talking with you, being your friend, drinking with you, and you be safe out there. And the tone of voice told me that his replacement, the new person that was going to be put on my case, would be in contact with me soon. 3 wannabe replacements contacted me by email. All of them were working off the same podcast. None of them had read any of my books or articles. Tom read thousands of my articles and even read my fiction. If you're a reader, I'll talk to you, even if you're a government killer. Okay? And I hope Tom, whoever you are, I hope you're doing great out there. Okay? Thanks a lot for letting me off the hook in an honorable way. And it was, you know, it was a real pleasure drinking with you. Okay?
Yeah, I thought he was cool, man. I thought he was all right.
He was a good guy. The best story he ever told me was the older kids in the neighborhood in Boston were making him and this other little kid his age fight for money in the street. And you know, old Italian guys used to tell me about this kind of stuff too. Like Lee Dinatelli, I used to coach for him, and you know, the older kids would grab him and make them fight each other, and they bet money on him and everything. And some guy's on his way to work at MIT or something like that in his fancy car, and he stops. He sees they're fighting. He sees they're being put up to it by older kids, and these are like single-digit kids, right? And they're beating each other up. And this like hipster college professor dude gets out of his sports car and starts chewing them out for fighting. They shouldn't be fighting. It should all be love. And
I hope
the older kids don't even have to say anything. The 2 little kids, Tom and his little enemy, and they didn't even like each other, they get offended that their honorable combat is being interrupted by this behavior, and they turn around with their little fists up and they say, "What are you, a faggot?"
oh, you just messed with. Oh, I can't put this video up now.
That's a quote. I didn't say that. And all the kids start jeering at him, accusing him of living an alternative lifestyle. Right. Oh. And he jumps in his car and he speeds off. So that was like one of the funniest stories anybody ever told me. Yeah, so that was Tom. Tom was a great guy. The scariest human being you know, that I've been with. Because, cool. I interviewed other killers. Yeah. I've told some Tom stories to some people, and they're like, yeah, that's bullshit. He's just a weirdo. He's pulling your leg. He never killed anybody. I've dealt with a lot of fighters, and and besides, he told me the same story at different stages of blind drunkenness and never had any variation on any of facts. It's just that the longer he knew me and the drunker we got, the more nasty little details I would get.
Interesting.
Okay, so he checked out, and the guys I dealt with doing the Violent Project, and Joe Bananas was the scariest of them. He was number 2. Yeah. Him and Tom in the same room, I mean, I would just be pouring drinks. I'd be like the ugliest barmaid on the planet. Okay. I don't know. I see
some ugly conversation. I see some ugly fucking barmaids. At least you'd be good. You probably wouldn't fuck the drinks off. Okay. All right. Good luck, Tom. Wherever you are.